So huge nerd. You touched on this earlier, and you actually talk about it in your TikTok as well. You don't drink, so things that you catch flack for. You don't drink. You had a drink in the seventh grade, I think it was. Didn't like it, and you don't drink. And yet another thing that you catch flack for. So let's count some of the things you catch flack for. You catch flack for your mural,
Yep.
for being a nerd,
Yep.
because you don't drink, and because you are a self-labeled atheist.
True.
Yet you still stand up for these things, what I think is most important. Number one, stand up for what you believe in, because again, your kids are learning from that lesson. But just uh, talk about, you mentioned in your TikTok people video that people give you crap about not drinking, and somehow you get labeled as this weird person for doing that, and you already expected that for the nerd thing. And again, the atheist thing, you love to say you're an atheist, not because you want to make a big deal of your religious beliefs, but because other people like to give you a big deal about it.
So yeah. So first off, the drinking thing. This is very important because this one bothers me on a level that no one will ever understand. So when I was in seventh grade, my parents, I have three older brothers and an older sister. My parents would go on vacation with the two of them, but not take the five of us. And they just leave us at home to fend for ourselves. So, because, it's really expensive to take 7 people on vacation. It's a lot cheaper to take 2 people on vacation. So I was the youngest. And the way that my brothers, my sister had already went to college. So my brothers so I was in 7th grade. I think one was just graduated high school. One was like a senior in high school. And one was like in 8th grade. Or no, it was a freshman in high school. And then I was in 7th grade. And the way that they would get it, so like the younger ones didn't tell on the older ones, is they just get us to do bad things too. My brother, like when my brothers and myself, and when I got older, when we threw a party. Like a lot of people see these parties in movies and are like, that's not a real party. I am not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. We would have hundreds of people in our house, cars parked all over our front yards, police showing up. These would be major parties. Because my parents, like I said, they'd go on vacation a couple times a year for a week. One time, this is a terrible story, completely off subject. One time, my parents went away to Chicago for 3 months. 3 months, the entire summer, and left my brothers at home. They came home. My dad,
I thought you guys were just watching TV and playing video games.
My father, knowing the type of children he raised, came home 2 days earlier than my mom, and literally just hauled beer cans and beer bottles to the dump for a solid 24 hours. But going back to why I don't drink. So there's 2 real keys here. My father wasn't a big drinker, but his dad was an alcoholic. And I never met his dad. He died before I was born, which was scary to me as a kid. But he would tell me these stories about what his dad would do on the weekends when he was drunk. And for whatever reason, it planted a weird seed in my head that I was like, I don't want to be like that guy. That guy sounds awful.
Yeah.
So it planted this weird seed. Then my parents go away on vacation and my brothers want to have a party. And they're like, Tom, whatever you want, we'll get. And this is sound terrible, but I remember seeing in like a Spin magazine or a Rolling Stone Goldschlagers, and I was like, it's got flakes of gold in it. This is amazing. So I was like, ooh, get me a bottle of Goldschlagers. And they come back with like this like bottle of Goldschlagers. And I was like, hell yeah, 7th grade in a house full of high schoolers with a bottle of Goldschlagers. I'm the coolest kid here. I drank like maybe this much of it. And was like, this is disgusting. It was god awful. And
adults don't like to drink Goldschlager. They do it, but they don't like it.
And I was like, this is awful. This is the most disgusting thing ever. And I was really like, I was tiny. Like I'm tall, but I was like rail thin and something. I was like gangly. I'd like gone through my growth spurt. So I was like string bean, 7th grade, like awkward as picture, just a 6 foot tall, awkwardly skinny kid. And I drank I drank some of the Goldschlagers. So, I mean, never had a drink before. But I was sitting down and I was like, I'm so cool. And then I got up and was like, I don't like this feeling at all. This is a terrible feeling. So I like threw up like instantly because it tasted like garbage. And then I was like dizzy and I'm like, oh, this is awful. And then someone was like, oh, wait, imagine how bad you'll feel tomorrow. And then, so this high school kid was like, yeah, so when you get drunk, you just have like the flu the next day. And I was, then that a little seed in my head, I was like, why would I want to give myself the flu? And then from that point on, I was just like, it just seems so silly. Like it tastes awful. And the other thing is, as I got older, never had a problem. Like I said, my brothers would throw these rager parties. I'd throw rager parties. I would go out into the woods with my buddies while they drank. Just never had interest. I also had like probably 15 friends, which is a decent friend group for high school. Like close friends that we'd hang out all the time. Like I said, my parents were never home. So like my house was like the house. My brothers smoked. They were over 21. They had no problem buying underage kids drinks. But I never had peer pressure from any of them. People would be like, you want a beer? And I'd say no. And the most people, and in high school, I'd get, why not? And I'd be like, I just don't like the way it tastes. And then people would say, this is the go-to line in high school, you just need to drink 3 or 4. And to me, that makes no sense. Like, I need to drink 3 or 4 drinks before it tastes good. Like, why? Why? And that was in high school. But as I got older, in like my young 20s and my late 20s and now in my 40s, the assumptions that are made about me when I'm just like, no, I don't drink, they automatically assume I was an alcoholic. And then they're like, oh, I'm so, like, they apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And I'm like, didn't know what? And they're like, I didn't realize you were sober. And I'm like, I'm not sober.
Great.
And then people will be like, oh, how many, like, people like just ran, like, it's amazing how often it comes. Like, I have more peer pressure in my 30s to get drunk than I ever did in middle school and high school. It's kind of mind blowing. The fact, and whenever I meet someone new, this is how the conversation goes. They offer me a beer. I'm like, oh, I don't drink. Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't be. And they're like, how many years have you been sober? And I'm like, I guess 27. I don't know. I had my last drink in 7th grade. I just don't drink. And I have to have this long conversation. And then like we hang out and then they're like, I'm going to get you drunk one day. And I'm like, no, but like,
is that a goal?
And then it becomes their like mission to like try and like get me to drink. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, I have no interest. And now there was a point when I was 36, I remember having this conversation in my life because it was so frustrating. Like I said, high school, 0 peer pressure, just occasional like, oh, you just need to drink a few. But no one was like, here, drink this, do it right now. But in my 30s, the pressure was so strong from people to get me to drink. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I had a conversation with my wife and I'm like, should I drink? Am I like the biggest weirdo in the world because I don't drink? And she's like, no, I like that about you. Because she, like I said, I have no problem whatsoever with alcohol. I go to bars. I worked in the restaurant. I was around alcohol constantly. No problem with it. And I was like, should I drink? And she's like, no, it's like an interesting, cool thing about you. It would be weird for you to drink now. And then she was like, it would also be weird to like find out what kind of drunk you would be. Because like, it's fine to find out that you're like a fighter or a crier when you're like 16 in the woods with your friends. It's weird when you're like 36 at a bar to find out that after 2 beers, you just bawl cry for 45 minutes straight. Like, it's weird. So I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to find out what kind of drunk I was. But it was weird that in my mid 30s, I had so much peer pressure to drink that I contemplated having a drink.
Yeah.
And
no,
the whole course, like the things you hear about peer pressure in like middle school and high school, no one talks about the peer pressure in your 30s. It's kind of ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
When you're supposed to be an adult.
But then the other thing they think is like, I'm some weird.
Good to you.
The other thing they think is I'm some like weird, like super straight edge person. And I'm like, I'm not. I do other things other than drink. And then they automatically, then they go to religious reasons. And then that one bothers me. I'm like, they Like then, like when they know I've been married for 17, they got married when I was in his 20s, and he doesn't drink, he must be Mormon. And then I'm like, did you look at my arm? Did you look? Did you actually physically look at me? I'm covered in tattoos. I'm pretty sure Mormons aren't allowed to have tattoos. It'd be really weird if I stuck to the drinking, getting married, young thing, but I veered away from the tattoo thing.
But it gives you something to talk about. And good on you for not buckling to the pressure. Good on your wife. I think that's and it is a very interesting thing, and I think it is very cool. And I'm glad that you at least have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
Never judge a book by its cover, but you can judge our show all you like. Leave a like, a subscribe, a comment. Let us know what you think, even if you don't like the show, but we know you do. Check out the podcast every Wednesday at your favorite podcast provider. And thanks for coming by Y-TiSTiCS. I mean, hey, why not?